Are you tired of being a nice girl, particularly as a Black or ethnic woman living in a Western society? Because there is an expectation for women to be nice and an added racial expectation for Black and brown women to keep your head down, be grateful to be in a room. Do not ask too many questions or cause commotion if you wish to thrive in this society. Newsflash, playing the Oreo Black girl, the ditzy Latina, meek Asian woman, or even the perfect immigrant daughter does not always guarantee you will be loved, respected, or treated justly. Moreover, aren't you tired of living a fraction of who you are? When will you have the courage to dispel all these racial, gender, and cultural baggage that you have been carrying for so long that's prevented you from living the life you've always wanted? Because guess what? When you die, all of these people you've been bending backwards over for will continue to live their lives while you wither 6 feet under. Is it macabre? Yes. But I want to wake you up to liberate you of this bondage of thinking that the only way to survive is to keep your mouth shut and put everyone else's feelings before yours. If you've been burnt so much that you have nothing left to give, bit your tongue when you wanted to speak up, played it nice for so long to keep the peace, well, help us here, because this ends today. I was just like you. Actually, I'm still a recovering people pleaser in therapy, because for 27 years of my life, I lived for others. Didn't want to offend people even though they had no qualms offending me. Placed a lot of weight on how family, co-workers, strangers, and the world at large and wanted me to act so I could be more palatable for them, even to the detriment of my own well-being. Psychoneuroimmunology found that people who habitually bit their tongues, suppress their anger, and bottled up their emotions are far more likely to develop mental and physical illnesses, because the continuous activation of sympathetic nervous system causes elevation in cortisol. Inflammation is formed without being dispelled through anger or anywhere voicing it out, and ultimately this is how you get sick. It wasn't until I lost my ex to cancer, my oldest friend in America, all in a space of 1 year, that I realized that I had to make a change. I will walk you through how society, cultural backgrounds as ethnic women, and racial assumptions program us to continue being nice girls so that the world can be more comfortable. I'm taking you through a deep dive because I want you to understand the problem root cause so you can effectively solve it. We will discuss the woes of being a nice girl and the benefits of switching to an assertive woman, a brief reason why, and 3 ways on how to do it. I'm Dr. Princess, PharmD, new videos every Thursday. Let's get into it. Nice girl.
And that's to say that, well, if you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're just harmless. You're like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't virtuous. It just can't do anything except get eaten.
We begin with how society programs us to be nice girls from day one. It's a combination of nature and nurture. Nature because as women, we were kids, and there's a certain amount of temperance and calmness and patience is required to raise a child. So it makes sense that we would be the nicer, gentler sex. There's also a biblical aspect. The Bible did say that we were formed out of a rib of a man to serve as a helper. Now, couple the fact that we are the fairer sex, we have less testosterone, we rear children, and the message from God, it is understandable that we will voluntarily submit ourselves to perpetuate this idea of being a nice, sweet girl. And I completely agree on this notion that women are the nicer sex, because if both sexes were crazy and temperamental, it would have been the end of our species. However, being a complete nice girl without showing a range of emotions, aggression, disagreeability isn't being virtuous. It's just being weak, because like it or not, people respect a show of power and self-respect. And I'll show you in the next segment how to accomplish that. Dr. Peterson said this perfectly. If you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're just harmless. And you can't do anything. You're like a rabbit. And a rabbit can do anything except get eaten. And that's why people take advantage of you, take you for granted. And opportunities get passed over because you never have the ability to advocate and speak up for yourself. Carl Jung says that both the male and the female have a propensity for the animus and anima, which which is the male and the female energy. And the people who have learned to master both yin and yang sides of themselves and express both masculine and dominant energy at the right time live the best lives possible. And that's what you need to learn. Early 2023, I'm going to tell you a story. Right at the start of my liberation journey, I moved into this apartment. On move-in day, the concierge was rude to me and made some racial remarks. I shut it down immediately because I had just made the decision at the end of 2022 that I was going to begin speaking up for myself. He was quiet and he did the most sneaky thing that you wouldn't be surprised of, which is to leverage the leasing manager, who's a black guy, to do his dirty work, who was not there actually when I had this occurrence with him. I get into my apartment, the leasing manager, a black guy, sends me this email. I can't read this email for the purpose of privacy, but anyways, I'm gonna tell you what I said to him in response to his email. I said to him, your staff was insolent, rude, and disrespectful. I would think as a leader you would have the intellect to inquire for me pertaining whatever you'd have heard. Rather, you send me this lousy email on my first night here. I will be discussing this matter with your manager, and if need be, take it further. Have a good night. And did I take it further? Indeed. I ended up suing them and we settled out of court. Now, the moral of the story here is that this experience, for the first time in my life, having the courage to stand up to myself and to a huge corporation, gave me the self-confidence that I can stand up for myself when necessary. It doesn't change the fact that I'm still naturally polite, warm, and empathetic, but true strength is knowing when to be nice and when to unsheathe your sword and deliver a punishment to people who have harmed you. Otherwise, people will walk all over you. They will take your kindness for weakness, and ultimately you will become ill, resentful, and never reach your fullest potential because you never had the courage to step outside the shadows of others' expectations of you. We'll discuss now why Black and ethnic women have an added pressure to play nice and how to dispel this burden. I will tell you a story, one of which I'm not proud of. However, it's a testament that no matter how much you contour yourself, be respectable, play the model minority, it may not always guarantee that you'll be respected, treated equally, or justly. It is a cautionary tale so you don't do what I did. A while ago, I belonged to a luxury wellness gym membership. Anyways, fuck it, I'll mention the name Equinox. On a Saturday, I wore this beautiful red matching set in a room filled with people wearing black and gray, predominantly middle-aged white women with a few young people. From the moment I stepped in, being an INFJ, I was able to sense the energy of like anger and tension and envy and like this whole like, who the hell does she think she is, strutting in this way, coming into this room this way, being confident. I put my mat next to this lady, this middle-aged lady, and she's like, with so much anger and aggression, turns to me and says, you're not staying next to me. I was like, what is going on here? The instructor comes over and says, oh, it's because that the mat has to be at a certain part of the room. I was like, sure, tell me where to go and I'll go there. I got to where she placed me, begin the workout routine, and suddenly I hear someone slap my feet. And it's another woman with another anger and aggression saying, your shoes are too close to my face. And I was like, what the hell is going on? I am doing nothing but exist here. But I knew it was more than just space or whatever. It's just that anger of some white people seeing a black person, especially a black woman, living in her femininity, in her strength. Sometimes it triggers a lot of them. Anyways, my first response that came to my mind, my instinct response, was to tell her, if you touch me with your filthy hands again, I will slap your ears so hard they will ring from here to Jericho. But I didn't do that because I didn't want to be the uppity black girl. I didn't want to be the angry black woman. I wanted to play the respectable politics. And that's where I made the mistake. Because when people disrespect you and you do not tender punishment or repercussions for that, it gives room for them and the onlookers to know that they can do more of that to you. And that's what happened to me. The lady instructor comes like, can you move forward for her? I'm like, no. She's on the last row. She has enough space between her and the door. She can step back. And moreover, you placed me here. So that went on. A few minutes later, the instructor comes to me again and says, why do you have smaller weights? And I've always had smaller weights when I work out because I don't want a bulky muscle. I explained it to her. She literally took my weights and said, go get bigger weights. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So now they're just really fucking with me. Next week, same thing happens. She comes again after I explained to her, forcing me that I have to get a new weight. I was like, at this point, we're done. Just step away and do what you have to do. Do your job. And she loses it. She's yelling at me. She's stepping on my mat, sweats everywhere. And again, the first instinct was to match her energy. I'm like, okay, you want to be crazy? I'm going to show you crazy because I'm Nigerian. But I didn't do that. I wanted to be the respectable doctor, which is stupid. And this is why your first instinct, even though it may not fall in line with what might be the right thing to do, should be what you should do, because that's what your soul needs at the moment. She asked me to leave. She's like, fuck you, get out of my class. You think you're just a princess and we're living in your world. I'm like, how does weights have to do with this? So in this time, I'm playing the respectable part, which is just laughing at her. I'm like, just step away from my mat. When she refused, I quietly moved her away and continued my exercise. But it was so humiliating having that happen. And looking back, I would have handled that differently, because when I brought the issue to management, and this is why your identity politics and your capitulating and being polite may not always get you the right thing. I brought it to management. They said we're going to look into it via email. And a few days later, they rescinded my access, not asking me anything. After it did not respond to me after they told me they were going to get back to me. And the part that really hurt my feelings, that really maddened me, wasn't that she had the crazy outburst or that they rescinded my access, but that despite my respectable politics, it still didn't garner me the gym membership. And I vowed to myself that never again would I mute myself because of what people in the room thought. That is why the last week video I posted, you should go watch, when the lady was rude to me, I called her, see you next Tuesday. You must learn to pick yourself over racial expectations, biases, or intimidation, because they're designed to keep you small and never reach your potential. Number 3 is the cultural and familial expectations as ethnic women that further ingratiates this idea that we must be nice girls if we're going to survive in this society. And I'll just share this with you. Being a Nigerian and immigrant woman, there is a lot of emphasis on how the world perceives us. Like how you look on the outside is oftentimes more important than what's actually going inside. And my mom would normally say things like, make sure you don't do anything to bring shame to the family. What would people think? There was a lot of what would people think growing up. In general, our culture as ethnic women build us to be subservient to leaders, differ to elders and people in power, sometimes and many times men, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it doesn't entail you muting your own emotions, muting your own instincts, muting your own intuitions. All of this with the understanding that women already should be nice and polite, especially women of color in a Western society have an added pressure to do it that way, because again, it's not a society that is owned by us. You find that it makes sense that a lot of us would get into this role of smiling when we should yell, or pretending like everything's okay, or always taking the high road. And what I realized through therapy, as something as easy as, admitting that my mother is a narcissist, as opposed to saying, oh, what would people think, is that by having the courage to speak my truth, to say things as they are versus how it should look, it has given me the courage to be more assertive at other aspects of my life, whether it's in my career, whether it's with friends, or just have the courage to say no to relationships or things that do not serve me. Because there are people like you and me here who are keeping silent while family members are mistreating them, or even worse, doing harmful things to them. Husbands are not being kind to them, abusing them. A boss is putting you through hell. A friend is taking advantage of you. But in the name of keeping the peace and making sure everything looks good on the outside, you keep your mouth shut. Ethnic women, I think it's high time we end this charade and prioritize our genuine happiness first. Here are the 3 woes of being a nice girl and the benefit of switching from nice girl to assertiveness. Number 1 is spiritual repression. When you constantly mute yourself, mute what you want to say, what you want to do, eventually it's going to cause an identity crisis, because you're muting not just your voice and opinion, but your desires, your voice, your sexuality, and you're cleaving off of your soul. Everything God has put into you, you're not expressing it because you're afraid. And that's why you develop things like mental and psychological illnesses. Number 2 is emotional unrest. Chronically holding in your anger, your thoughts, your emotions in the name of not offending others bring about chronic anxiety, self-sabotage, loss of self-respect, because you constantly abandon yourself. That's why you spend hours and days rehashing what you should have said, could have said, in the moment instead of just saying it in the moment while the person who wronged you is busy sleeping at home. It's ridiculous. And the third, which is very important to me, is the failure effect. Failure to set boundaries, inability to say no, lack of courage to be who you are and do the things that you want, and constantly censoring yourself means also censoring your dreams and desires, which ultimately means you will never reach your fullest potential because of your lack of courage to pursue them fully. So when is this gonna end? This is how it's going to end, because I'm gonna show you 3 steps to become a more assertive woman and live a happier, healthier, wealthier life, hopefully. Number 1, make a decision. You need to make a decision, a decree that you are going to end this sickness of being the nice girl. Oftentimes it takes tragedy or reward because we're either inspired by a gain or a loss. Mine was tragedy. Loss of my ex, loss of my friend, about to turn 30, all in 1 year. I had to make a change. For you, it could be the reward that would entice you to change. The idea of the woman you'd become, the life you would lead, the things you would accomplish, the self-respect you'd gain once you have transformed into this new woman who chooses herself first. Whatever your motivation is, you need a why, because the why, the reason behind what you're doing, is what's going to keep you going on days that you want to give up. The second is make a plan, because having desires without a plan is just wishful thinking. Is it therapy that you need? Do you need a professional to help guide you through your traumas, your pain, your limitations, and give you constructive, evidence-based ways to help it? Because getting a therapist this last few years is the best decision I've ever made in my life. Every time I make a payment for it, I'm like, this is the best money I'm spending. Number 2 is that, do you need rehearsal? Do you need to reenact moments where you need to stand up for yourself or negotiate a raise or speak to a friend about a difficult situation? Because as you rehearse, you're prepping your subconscious mind and particularly your reticular activating system to be more prepared in the moments where you have to speak the way you need to respond to things. And most importantly, you need guiding principles, because a man without principle is like a flailing rag in the wind. You're going to be easily pushed around and go with the flow, which, by the way, click the link below to watch the 7 guiding principles of a successful woman. It will help you identify what your principles should be. And finally, you need to practice. You need patience. I say this in almost every video that I have on self-help or changing a habit or accomplishing something. You need patience because things are difficult to happen. This woman that you've been, it took you 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or maybe your entire life of being a nice girl. How do you expect yourself to wake up tomorrow and be a new woman? It doesn't happen that way. You need patience. You need discipline. You need to repeat things over and over again. It's not impossible, and soon you arrive there. Understand as well that progress isn't linear. There are going to be moments of this and that, and this and that, but it's definitely possible. Click this video if you're a beautiful woman who feels misunderstood. I'm Dr. Princess. I'll see you next Thursday.